Hello and welcome to episode 307 of the Plain Talking UK podcast. My name's Neville Bound, and on this week's show we learn that there is bad news for Heathrow as their expansion plans are thwarted yet again. There's finally some good news for Boeing, and there's an impressive new flatbed for one Kiwi carrier. This week it's our final part with Captain John Hutchinson as he shares with us a signalling mishap out at sea, and Armando shares with us the latest news from Reno as he chats to George Catalano. Well, this week it's just myself and Carlos, who's in the PTUK studio. Good evening, Carlos.
Hello, Nev. How are you on this fine evening? I'm here in the studio, hopefully pressing all the right buttons, well, as Matt does every week. Those of you watching may have noticed that Matt's not here this week. He's out having a jolly. I think, did Matt say he's in the Caribbean this week again, Nev?
Yes. I'll tell you what, you could do us a favour and stop that music playing, because it's very difficult for me to talk to you otherwise.
Oh, is that still playing?
Oh, yes, very much so.
There we go. How about that? Is that better?
That's a huge improvement.
That's brilliant. So how are things with you, Nev? How's this week's work been? I'm guessing you haven't been flying around Europe like you normally do. No,
I haven't this week, but I was in the Holiday Inn Express in Cambridge. I get around a bit. Although we did some filming with the A320 podcast guys in the A320 simulator up at Cambridge Airport, which went really well. And I was very tired at the end of it, so I thought I'll spend the next night at the hotel. But unfortunately, somebody next door had other ideas, and I had about 2.5 hours of racket and noise next door. So I had a word with the receptionist people, and they relocated me to another room, but not after some delay. So it was a bit hard work, to say the least. But I've just about caught up with my sleep now, I'm pleased to say. But these things happen, don't they?
They do. But it's safe to say that it's been an exciting week all round, I think. And obviously, those of you who do live in and around the UK will notice that it's got considerably cooler this week. And Nev, we actually had some of that white stuff this week. Did you?
Actually, when I left Cambridge when was it, the day before yesterday? Yeah. The sleet had started. It was that really sort of cold and wet and yucky, dank weather. That wasn't very nice. And of course, this weekend we've got it all again in terms of the rain. So
we've got a new storm this week. What was the name? What have they named the storm for this weekend?
Jorge.
Oh, Jorge.
Yes, from the Spanish department. Now, just a point of order there. I know we're leaving the European Union. We've gone from D to J somehow. So, but that's fair enough. So, we're interested to see what the next one is. But so now we're up for some 60, 70 mile an hour winds again this weekend. All very nasty.
Looking forward to that.
Not quite what you want, really.
So welcome then to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening. Chris Griggs, hello to you. Jenny in Rome, hello to you. Alex R, good evening. We've got Stephen H, hello to you, Stephen. Tony S, hopefully I haven't missed anyone out, and everyone else who's watching the live feed tonight, welcome to you all. 28th of February is the date, just coming up to 5 minutes past 7 in the evening here in a chilly UK. So Nev, this week we've got the last of the John Hutchinson's the interviews?
Yes, part 9. Can you believe that it's gone on for... This will be the 9th week we've been broadcasting John's thoughts. It's been quite a journey. The last part, actually, is worth listening to because in case you think you heard it all, there's some other revelations to come out of tonight's episode. And the other thing is we're going to make all these episodes available as a YouTube playlist as well. So you'll be able to relive the whole lot at your leisure. So looking forward to that. But it'll be a good one tonight, that's for sure.
What would you say, Nev, out of the whole kind of, the whole interview session you've done and stuff? What would you say was the highlight of the whole thing? Obviously, the finished product was the highlight, but for you,
I think John's massive experience over, so many years and on 70 different types of aircraft. I mean, what a career to have. He's been very humble and very modest about the whole thing, and he did say right at the beginning, he didn't feel that, as though he was always what you would call a natural pilot, and he found some of the training particularly difficult, but he persevered with it. And it just goes to show you, doesn't it, how people can succeed so well when they stick with it. So, but I think probably John would say that the highlight of his career was, the best part of 15 years on Concorde in the left-hand seat. So, that takes a bit of beating by any measure. But the types of aircraft he's flown is just phenomenal.
I must admit, Nev, I was up in the loft at home this week retrieving a suitcase for the wife that is Gemma. And I found my box up there, which has got all my sort of aviation bits and memorabilia, and I've got up there my little Concorde notepad and Concorde pencil up there, which is I'm going to leave up there, I think.
Yes, well, that'll be nice. And I think that, I've got a Concorde pencil sharpener somewhere, which is the shape of the aircraft, and there's 4. Or is it 2? No, there's 4 pencil sharpeners at the back, which is where the engines are. So, quite nice.
Have you got any memorabilia yourself, Nev? From the
not much, no. Bits and pieces, the odd key ring and the odd, bits and pieces here and there. Again, probably up in the loft somewhere. But I've not done as much as I should have done, really. But there's plenty of memorabilia online as well. There's no shortage of parts, instruments and seats and all sorts of stuff.
Perhaps that's something I need to look into. I need to buy an aircraft seat to have in the office at home to go with the simulator and stuff. Yeah,
I'm sure Jem will be delighted with that.
On the note of that, actually, Sims, I've been, those of you who watch the show will probably know that I'm a big lover of X-Plane 11, and I've been playing quite intensely on X-Plane 11 for the last few weeks, and flying into various airports around the world. And I have to say, I've been looking very closely at the new Microsoft flight sim that's coming out hopefully later this year. They keep pushing the date back that every 5 minutes. But I've been looking at some of the up-to-date screen grabs and video grabs of the new Microsoft flight sim. I've got to say, Nev, honestly, if you've got to look at this, because the graphics on this new flight sim that Microsoft are bringing out are it just baffles the mind.
I know that I've seen some of the previews of it, and the texturing and the layering and the way they've done the scenery and the detail is absolutely phenomenal, isn't it? So, definitely worth hanging on for it. When's it supposed to be coming out? Is it later in the year, did you say?
It's going to be, I think they're looking at, they were saying around about September time this year, I think was when they were going to try and release it, but that changes all the time. My only worry, as you can probably guess, Nev, is the fact that when I got X-Plane 11, I got that and upgraded my laptop to a gaming laptop. My only worry is now that when they bring out this latest version, the Microsoft latest version of Flight Sim, that I'm going to have to invest in an even more powerful laptop to run the game. I
think you will. Yes, there is an inevitability about that, isn't there?
Actually, before we start, Nev, you've purchased something new, haven't you, this week?
Oh, I did, yes. A couple of new things. My good old trusty iMac 27-inch has found a new home now. I just sold that this afternoon because all the video and audio editing I do, it's taken its toll on it a little bit. It's not quite as fast as it used to be. So I replaced it with a brand spanking new 27-inch iMac, which is extremely fast, I must say. Just shows you how quickly things move on in 5 years. And also I've got a 4K webcam as well, which is of no use to us whatsoever because we're transmitting in 720p for the most part. But it looks the business, and there's a nice thick cable coming out the back as well. So, very pleased with all that. It's all working nicely. Although the studio is in a bit of a mess, I need to tidy it up a bit. But
cable management.
So very very pleased with that. There is no cable management. It is a disaster at the moment, but we'll have it all fixed later on, I'm sure.
Well, we better start things then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Nev?
Yes.
Let's go. Do you know what? One day I'll get used to all this tech stuff, Nev. Obviously, Matt makes it look so easy every week. He does, really makes it look easy. So, on the first news story on this week's show, then, this one is on the Bloomberg.com website. And the headline, Heathrow runway in doubt, as ad blockers come up on the screen.
Yes, there's plenty of those on this one, isn't there?
So Heathrow runway in doubt as government won't appeal legal. Now, I saw this week, and I was quite surprised, actually, considering the amount of planning and everything that's gone into this whole third runway at Heathrow. But the story, London Heathrow's expansion plans face further delays after environmental activists won an appeal over third runway that Europe's busiest airport says it needs to boost flights and compete with rival hubs. Appeal court judges overturned a decision from May in favour of the project on Thursday, saying the UK government failed to take full account of international agreements on climate change when it backed the proposal. The ruling cast new doubt on a $20 billion project delayed for decades amid concerns about aircraft noise, increased pollution, the demolition of homes and the impact on crowded roads. Prime Minister Boris Johnson, he's a legend, isn't he, opposed the runway plan, but when he was London Mayor and the government said that it won't appeal the court's ruling. It also says that it's undecided on whether to revisit a strategic plan identified by the court as lacking in proposals for cutting carbon emissions. They said that we've always been clear that Heathrow expansion is a private sector project which must meet strict criteria on air quality, noise and climate change, Transport Secretary Grant Schnapp said in a statement. The court judgment is complex and requires careful consideration. Heathrow said it will seek to appeal to the Supreme Court and that any issues are eminently flexible or fixable. Since the original hearing in the UK, aviation industry has produced detailed plans for reaching zero net carbon emissions by 2050, while the airport itself published proposals this week, a spokesman said. Nev, come on, your thoughts. I mean, we've been on about for a while now about obviously the third runway, and obviously we've very good friends with certain members at Heathrow who are kind of looking forward to this happening. Is this not going to happen now?
Well, I think it is going to happen, and they've been talking about it for 20 years. I think the year 2000, I think I'm right in saying, was when it was first looked at. I think it's just a question of when it gets built, not if it gets built. And if you think about the aircraft that are flying in and out of the current two runways, all the Neo aircraft, all of the 787s, all of the A350 types, these are producing far less emissions than they ever used to produce. And Heathrow and all of the people that operate in and out there have done a lot of work to try and reduce delays going in and out as well. So without the third runway, you just got aircraft going around in one of the four holds for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, burning more fuel. Guess what that does, So I think that they should just get on with it. And if this had been, other countries that we might think of in Europe, I'm thinking France and Germany, for example, they would have just got it built. Now, I know that we've got space issues here at Heathrow, for example. It's not, there's a lot of local villages around, and I'm not saying that, you should just build it for the sake of it, but this has been going on an awful long time now, and something's got to happen, because what will happen, in fact it's already happening, is that the hub airport status that Heathrow has will just vanish, and it'll be Schiphol, Frankfurt, Charles de Gaulle, Madrid possibly, that will be the hub airports, and they'll take the business. So especially in this critical time of us leaving the European Union too. So I think it's just a question of time, but it's got to go through to the Supreme Court, I would expect, and that's going to take some months, isn't it?
Don't you think, Nev, that a lot of these people who complain and moan and whinge about this whole third runway thing, a big portion of these people who moan probably get on aircraft at Heathrow to go on their summer holidays?
They may well do. And I don't, I try very hard not to get into any politics on this show, as you know. But yeah, I just find myself on the edge here a little bit because, there's some double standards going on here and there, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, aviation and tourism, it's back in the day, I mean, a long time ago when traveling was pretty expensive, it was a nice to have. But now tourism represents a very large chunk of the aviation traffic, and also from the business and commercial part of the way countries work these days. So, it's just as important as it ever was. So, and from the business point of view, yeah, I know that there's video conferencing, and my company's involved with that kind of thing as well. But you do need to go and see people from time to time, and I think probably the shorter routes. In fact, I was talking to a pilot from a very well-known British airline just this week, and he was saying, the worst route or most difficult route for them is Heathrow to Manchester, because it's a 35-minute flight, door to door, roughly speaking. And then you've got a 25-minute delay going out, probably for a slot. Then you've got holding, perhaps. Then you've got some weather. Then you can't get a stand at the other end. So, the Heathrow to Manchester route, on an A320 or an A319. Yeah, it does seem a little bit pointless, and maybe some, there are some rail options there, which one might want to look at. But yeah, I mean, this problem is just not going to go away. It's been going on for, say, the best part of 20 years, and I'm expecting it to go on for a little bit longer yet.
So from that story about runways, on to the next story, Nev, which is for you. And for anyone who loves a room with a view, well, this story kind of doesn't.
Well, no, indeed. And it's on the Scottish Sun this time. And it says that a Ryanair passenger has demanded a refund after he paid extra for a seat by a window, only to discover his row didn't have one. Annoyed customer Marcos Molina took to Twitter to express his frustration at having paid extra for a window seat that didn't come with a window view. I don't know if you've got a picture of this, Carlos.
I'll bring it up on the screen.
Yes. But also, I'm just looking at some of the upholstery in this picture as well. It's not exactly, well, what I would call very high quality. But these things do happen from time to time. Now, of course, my screen is frozen at this point for some reason. I don't know why. We've got some gremlins coming into my my brand new computer here. But it does say that Marcus, who lives in Germany, shared his travel fail online on Thursday after flying from Berlin to Ireland. He told Dublin Live, "It's super annoying because the whole point of paying extra is to get those little upgrades. You pay more to be more comfortable, or at least as comfortable as it can be on a cramped plane." The Puerto Rican said he had to pay extra for his return journey because he'd been booked onto the same seat going back. He's now calling for Ryanair to refund him the money he spent on the seat. Ryanair charges customers more to guarantee some seats, including those with extra legroom or ones that are closer to the front of the plane. It's difficult to tell through the Ryanair website which seats are on the rows actually have windows next to them, but the budget airline said customers are advised that there are no windows during the process. A spokesman from Ryanair told The Sun Online there are 3 seats on all Boeing next generation 737-800s that do not have windows. Customers who choose to purchase these seats are advised of this fact during the booking process on the website. So,
Windows. I mean, it is nice to have a window seat. I will admit, It is nice to have a window seat. I'm slightly gutted that on the way out to Charlotte in June, we're in a centre row, so we won't have a window seat, which is a bit annoying. But I refuse to pay American Airlines ridiculous fees to choose a seat near the window. But
how much do they want, roughly speaking?
Well, I say ridiculous. It worked out. It was £67 each extra on top to sit near the window.
That's a tank of diesel, isn't it?
It is a tank of diesel, yeah. But on the way back we are, so that's fine. But it is nice to have a window seat because I mean we all love to look out the window and see the full HD view out of the window. it is rare to have. I mean, it depends, I think, a lot, Nev, on how the airlines put put the seats and have the seats fitted in the aircraft, because there are some airlines, even wide-bodied aircraft, where you do get a seat that doesn't have a window. I mean, if you sit on an overwing exit seat, as we all know, overwing exit seats, on some airlines, on some of the wide-bodied airlines, where the centre, the overwing exits, or their actual doors, rather full-size doors, and have the very small window in. But is it important for you, Nev, to have a window seat on your flight?
It's nice, but I mean, it's not a showstopper, and certainly most of the flights I do within Europe are, less than a couple of hours, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, it's nice to have, but if I haven't got one, I'm not that worried about it, to be honest with you.
Good evening, guys. Sorry I'm not on the show this week. I'm traveling again, but I did want to get one story out that came across some of the pilot forums. I did find an article on the Points Guy. Regional airline name familiar to many travelers in smaller communities will be gone by the end of the year when Trans-States Airlines stops flying. The demise of Trans-States Airlines will have no impact on passengers, as 36 of its Embraer ERJ-145 jets will be transferred to ExpressJet Airlines by the end of 2020. Both ExpressJet and Trans-States Airlines operate feeder flights for United Airlines under the United Express brand. The shutdown was communicated to Trans-States Airlines employees in a letter from parent Trans-States Holdings CEO Rick Leach on Monday that was received by the Points Guy, and it was also posted publicly. The move does not impact partners Compass Airlines or GoJet Airlines, which are also owned by Trans-States Holdings. St. Louis-based Trans-States Airlines fell victim to several factors that have wreaked havoc on regional airlines over the past few years. The industry-wide pilot shortage made hiring difficult, and a move by its mainline partner United to streamline its regional providers drove the decision to close the airline. The CEO said, in recent years, the regional aviation landscape has changed dramatically and continues to do so. Our industry has never been more competitive, and the margins for success at the regional level are razor thin. We have come to the extremely difficult decision that an organized and well-planned wind-down of the Trans-States operation is the most viable course of action. Now, Trans-States Airlines spokeswoman Stacey Ross confirmed the plan to shut down by year's end. A separate statement from ExpressJet confirmed that they will add the carrier's 36 ERJ-145s to their fleet by February of 2021. Other regional airlines have fallen victim to this pilot shortage. Republic Airways cited hiring issues in 2016 after its Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing. Great Lakes Aviation shut down entirely in 2018. All of the major carriers are in the process of consolidating their regional flying. Delta Airlines unveiled plan to end its relationships with Compass Airlines and GoJet Airlines in July amid a move to partner with just 3 regional carriers. So United, while not naming Trans-States Airlines specifically, told employees in a separate memo that a series of fleet movements at its United Express partners would occur in 2020. They said fleet movements between regional carriers are not uncommon. These changes will not impact any United mainline flying or staffing, said the Chicago-based carrier. They continued on, these transitions will improve our efficiency and set up United and our partners for an even better operation moving forward. United did expand its flying agreement for the Bombardier CRJ-550 with GoJet this month. The regional carrier will operate 20 more of the 50-seat jets that include a first-class cabin, and it expects to have a total of 74 aircraft by the end of 2021. So when Trans-States Airlines finally stops flying, it will be the end of a nearly 40-year history that included partnerships with storied names like Trans World Airlines, or TWA. Founded in 1982, Trans-States flew as TWA Express until 1985 when the merger with American happened. It also had partnerships with Delta Airlines and US Air, which later became US Airways. So this, is evident that while the industry is seemingly in a good place right now, there's always movement and there's always changes happening. And while the industry is doing well, sometimes the management and the financial status of a company really determines, its future. And here for Trans-States, they just they can't keep enough captains, and that may go to some of the comparisons when captains or pilots are looking at different airlines to fly with, some of the benefits and the pay and things like that. So they may elect to choose other airlines. So Trans-States Airlines has 42 aircraft. That's a pretty big staff. So as always, we wish everyone at Waterski the best in winding down this operation and finding success in wherever they happen to land next.
Sad news, Nev, obviously, and we just hope that all the staff and the pilots and the crews sort of get moved across to the other airline.
Yeah, I know. It's a recurring theme, isn't it? Every year there's more tales of woe for airlines that have gone out of business or parts of airlines that are no longer operating. But bit of a shocker, I must say, because it's been a well-known airline for a number of years. But there we are.
So Nev, the next story for you, and this one is, for a change, this week we are doing a good news story for Boeing.
Yes, we are, and this hasn't happened for a while. So let's celebrate it. It says that Boeing secured its first commercial jet order of the calendar year this week, ending its order drought in a deal that includes nearly a dozen jets to be made in North Charleston. All Nippon Airways said that Wednesday it will purchase as many as 20 787 Dreamliners. The ANA order includes 11 787-10s, which is the only model to be built exclusively at Boeing's campus off International Boulevard. One will be the shorter Dash 9 version. The Japanese carrier said it plans to buy 3 787-9s from a subsidiary of Sojitz Corporation, and has option to purchase 5 more. The list prices, 20 wide bodies are valued at more than $5 billion, but buyers typically negotiate discounts. If ANA acquires all 20 of them, it'll bring the airline's 787 inventory to more than 103. ANA already has 71 Dreamliners in its fleet, and is waiting on a dozen more to be delivered prior to the newest order. The Japanese air travel market has been highly valuable to the Dreamliner program, with ANA being the first carrier to ever place an order for the aircraft, and it has made 5 additional orders since then. ANA's executive vice president specifically called out the South Carolina-made Dash 10 as a fitting replacement for the older Boeing 777s the airline will be retiring from its domestic routes in Japan. New order is a boost for Boeing following a low point last month when the plane maker logged no new orders and delivered just 13 jets. Meanwhile, its competitor Airbus netted 274 commercial airplane orders in January. Also last month, Boeing announced a second production cut for the Dreamliner program. After scaling back from the current rate of 14 jets a month to 12 later this year, the company will reduce the number to 10 starting in early 2021. Boeing cited trade tensions with China as the main reasons for the cuts, but more recently, the coronavirus outbreak has caused more concern about working with Chinese airline customers. Production of the Dreamliner is split between Boeing South Carolina in North Charleston and a West Coast plant in Eugene, Washington. So that's some good news for a change, isn't it? About time too.
Yeah, it certainly is. We need some good news for Boeing, and having travelled on the Dreamliner, I'm a fan. But I will say, Nev, I'm going to go off. I've said this before on the show. That 350-1000 was very nice.
Yes, that will on a 3-week-old aircraft or whatever it was when we went on it. That was just fantastic, wasn't it? I really enjoyed that. And I was talking to some pilots this week in the sim where I was filming, and a couple of them hadn't been on the 350 yet. And I said, "You've got to go on it because it's just so quiet and so relaxing." So looking forward to another opportunity at some point. But nevertheless, good to see that ANA will have deliveries totaling 103 787s. That's quite something, isn't it?
That'll keep them busy anyway at the various plants and all the bits and pieces. So it's good. It's good news for. But I think they could do with some good news this year. So moving on to the next story. This one is on one of Nev's favourite reads, the Mirror. .co.uk, and the headline on here this week: EasyJet cancels flights and sends workers home unpaid as the coronavirus slashes profits. So here we go. So we've gone from the max now. We're going on about the coronavirus each week. So the carrier has introduced a pay freeze for workers with non-mandatory training suspended and unpaid leave offered to staff after it had to cancel flights due to the deadly virus. Budget airline EasyJet has warned it has cancelled flights and introduced emergency cost cuts to help mitigate the financial impact of the coronavirus outbreak. It said that the spread of the illness had caused a drop in demand for flights in and out of Italy and across Europe. The announcement came just this week, just after 48 hours after German carrier Lufthansa revealed it's offering all workers unpaid leave in a bid to curb coronavirus losses. So that's interesting. Lufthansa offering unpaid leave. I mean, I don't know how many people are going to snap unpaid leave up. But the airline, whose shares have fallen 15% this week, has grounded 13 aircraft and cancelled all flights to and from the Chinese mainland until March. That's Lufthansa. In a statement on Friday, EasyJet said that they'll be making decisions to cancel some flights, particularly those into and out of Italy, while continuing to monitor the situation and adapting our flying program to support our demand. The carrier has introduced a pay freeze for workers with non-mandatory training suspended and unpaid leave offered to members of staff. While it is too early to determine what the impact of the COVID-19 outbreak will be on the current year outlook and guidance for both the airline and industry business, holiday business, they said here that they continue to monitor the situation carefully and will update the market in due course, said EasyJet. EasyJet is working closely with authorities and are following the guidelines provided by the World Health Organization, EASA, to maintain and ensure the health and well-being of people and customers, the company added. EasyJet said it would reorganize its summer 2020 flights to maximize revenue for when the market recovers. If you have a flight booked with the airline, you can check for updates and revised schedules on the EasyJet website. If your flight is cancelled by the company, you will have to they will contact you as soon as possible with updates and alternative travel arrangements. It's obviously, Nev, one of the things we talk about and say enough on this show is whenever you book a flight or book holidays or anything like that abroad, what's that essential thing that you buy as well to go alongside?
Some euros for your duty free.
For the
travel insurance, of course.
Travel insurance. But I will say they have been saying this week on quite a few of the websites that you must always make sure you check the fine print and the bits and pieces on the travel insurance policies that you have, because there is a big difference between many insurance policies, holiday insurance policies out there, if you do look at the fine print, because some will not cover you for certain things, such as this particular coronavirus update. So I think for most of us, we'll have all got either annual holiday insurance, or a lot of us take out holiday insurance as and when needed. But for most part, most of the big insurance companies within the UK here, especially the kind of the bigger policies, will cover for most things like this. But Nev, I'm guessing you're fully covered for the year.
Yes, I just bought some actually the other day, and it cost me it's £55 for the whole year. I think the other thing is that the things that are happening now is that very large events are being cancelled. So talking today on Friday, the Geneva Motor Show has been cancelled for this year. And that is a massive show, and a lot of people in my industry, in the AV industry, audiovisual industry, are involved with that, because they're putting big LED walls onto the booths there. So the biggest manufacturers you can think of will be there, and of course most people are already there. building booths and what have you. So but also the hit on the economy will be massive, because think about the number of hotel rooms and dinners and stuff like that get bought. So yeah, this has got a bit to play out yet. I don't think people should be pressing the panic button, but there's clearly some when there's very large events on. For example, if the show that I attended at the start of February was in March, it would not surprise me if they would have cancelled it. Although, of course, at the start of February when I went, there wasn't the amount of difficulty that there currently is. So we'll see what happens. But it's as I said, it's also got to play out first of all.
So from the chat room, Tony S has quite rightly said that he doesn't think travel insurance will pay out if you don't want to go because of fear of a virus. Only if the Foreign Office advise against travel. Jenny in Rome has also said that disinclination to travel is not accepted. I think that the three policies that I looked at online all said that, actually all three of them said that if you just choose not to bother to go because you're scared that you might, go somewhere where you might catch this, you won't get paid out. That all the insurance policies that I looked at online did say that if the airline turns around and cancels your flight because of what's happening, then you'll get your money back. But I think for the majority of people, Nev, if you book with a credit card, I think you're fairly well covered, I think, aren't you, Nev?
Yes, and it's the credit card company that will deal with it for you. And also, if you're a British traveller, taking the advice of the FCO, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, on their website. It tells you all about the current travel advisories around the world. That tends to be a good thing as well. So if you see something on there, it's always worth taking a screenshot of stuff as well, because that FCO advice does change from time to time.
Also, before we move on, just quickly, I mean, I've always been one to, in the previous years, to buy a policy as and when I need it for holidays and stuff abroad. But in the last few years, I have brought an annual policy, which, when you add it up, actually does work out to be better value, Nev.
It does, yeah, definitely. It's a multi-trip, and even if you exclude or if you included North America with some of that as well, it's not very much more expensive. So if you're thinking that you're going to be doing some traveling to the US, it's definitely worth taking it, I think.
Tony, I totally agree with you. We just hope that none of the air shows get cancelled this year. So moving on to the next story, Nev, and this next story is about a certain destination and an airport that I do know quite well.
You do. You should be reading the story, really, shouldn't you? But I will do it for you. This is on the trbusiness.com, which is the travel retail business.com. It says that Malta International Airport is embarking on a radical program to increase its passenger capacity and improve customer experience, with an expansion of its footprint from 18,000 square meters to 31,200 square meters. The check-in hall, security area and departures will all benefit from the transformation, whilst the airport says that it will be placing great emphasis on enhancing the passenger experience and the sharing of a distinct sense of place. The terminal planning elements incorporate a more natural and effective passenger journey through the terminal, thereby enhancing passenger flow and exposure to the retail offers, says the airport. The airside and landside developments will involve the introduction of new retail and catering units for both departing and arriving passengers. The plan also aims to improve the amount of natural light coming into the terminal and incorporates a distinct sense of the location, celebrating the spirit, heritage and natural beauty of Malta. The airport's investment program also incorporates new developments across the airport estate, including the development of the apron, the construction of an additional business park, which is called Sky Parks 2, and the building of a new hotel. In addition, the introduction of smart technologies, including a new building management system to enable energy and water management optimization to support the development of an energy efficient building. Supported by airport design and planning experts, the design solution and consultants Pragma, the €100 million development reaches comprehensively across all aspects of the airport's operations and every touch point in the passenger journey. Alan Borg, who's the CEO of the airport, outlined the airport's long-term development vision. He says, having officially unveiled the terminal expansion project to the public in January, we're now eager to kickstart the next phase of this ambitious project. The terminal expansion project will equip us with the capacity to handle further traffic growth and enable us to offer a 5-star airport experience. This will be achieved through a combination of increased operational space, a superior retail offering, a stronger sense of place, and the use of cutting-edge technologies. Graham Johns, who's the director at the Design Solution, outlined the architectural plan at the airport. He says that the design solution has a long history of partnership with a dedicated team at the airport, and we are proud to have been selected to support them on this major phase of the airport's development. The plan incorporates 3 main areas of expansion to the terminal, collectively enabling us to implement a change of image to the exterior appearance of the building, which, carefully coordinated with our planning input, will help deliver a smarter flow and a new experience for the passenger. The airport registered a passenger growth of 7.9% in 2019, which is up 7.31 million, and supported by 20 new destinations. Its role as host to 97% of the island's tourist traffic, making it a crucial contributor to the Maltese economy, says the airport operator. Well, that's very good news, isn't it? The last time I was in Malta was 2010, I think, or 11. And yes, it could do with a bit of a spruce up, and it was all a bit quite busy when I was there. But it's great to see there's some big expansion plans going on.
Now, for me, as you know, a fairly frequent visitor to the island of Malta. It holds a very special place in my heart, especially even more so now after my grandfather passed away, because it was also his special place as well. But I have to say that, you know, I cast my mind back, Nev, to when I was 4 or 5 years old, my first time flying into Malta, when it was a brick building, a tin shack shed, a tractor and a trailer, and a small passport control table entering the island. And that was back in the 707 days, actually, when Air Malta flew the 707. Wow. But I have to say, especially in the last 4 years, the airport itself has undergone some pretty hefty changes and expansion, and I have to say now, last year, flying through and going through the airport itself, seamless, absolutely seamless. The luggage was there, passport control was nice and quick. The only thing that Lucca Airport doesn't have is the air bridges for aircraft. You know, you have to walk down the steps and get bussed off. But they are in the process of making some big improvements to the airport at the moment. I know myself from being out there last year, one of which is moving the rental car park to a completely other end of the airport. But it'll be interesting to see what happens here. I'm looking forward to this. And my only concern about this whole expansion thing, if they do with the airport to bring more people in, is that Malta is a small island, as you know now, very small island, and is already very popular. Bear in mind, many years ago, people used to think of Malta as a bit of a boring place to go, but it is one of the very booming places to go in Europe now. So I'm just a bit worried it might get a little bit too congested, Nev, if this happens. But there you go.
Yes, and I'm just looking up on Wikipedia, as one does. This goes back to 2017, but the busiest international routes out of the airport are Gatwick, number 1, Rome, it's number 2, Frankfurt, Catania, Brussels, Munich, Manchester, Heathrow, Istanbul, and Paris Orly. And these are huge numbers, and Air Malta flies to all of them apart from Istanbul. So it's a it's a really, really important destination for people to go to. But as you say, very easy to be overloaded, I would imagine, as well.
Yeah, and also the 777 flights that come in there few times, 3 or 4 times a week from Dubai as well. So it's.
Now, I'm right in saying it's a bit like Gibraltar, isn't it? It's shared with the military Lucca Airport as well, isn't it?
Yeah, they have their own part of the base, or part of the airport itself. They also have a runway which they use as well. But the military side is in the older part of the airport where the older buildings are, and that's actually where they hold the air show, which will be this year. Is on the old part of the airport, so it doesn't interfere with the running so much of the main airport. So yeah. So moving on to the next story, and this next story, for those of you who love your comfort while flying and can't afford first class or business class seats, this one is on the Sam Chewy. We do love Sam Chewy. samchewy.com aviation and travel site, and the headline: Air New Zealand to launch flatbed in economy. So Air New Zealand have unveiled a new economy cabin sleeping pod for its long-haul planes. The sleep pods, called the Skynest, would offer lie flat beds for some economy passengers who pay extra to access it. There would be only 6 on each plane. I can see the fights appearing now. Air New Zealand's long-haul planes typically carry at least 200 economy passengers. Air New Zealand Skynest flatbed, which obviously is going to be an economy, is a product which is still in its research phase. Air New Zealand said it would make a final decision about the implementation in late 2021. The Skynest appears similar to the crew rest areas on long-haul aircraft, which allow pilots and flight attendants to sleep between duty shifts. It's not immediately clear when the Skynest would go live, but the airline said it is still researching where to place it in the economy cabin. It will be considering removing several rows of seats if necessary. The Skynest product comes as Air New Zealand prepares to launch its new longest flight, a 17-hour non-stop between Auckland and Newark. The service scheduled to begin in late October 2020. Air New Zealand's long-haul aircraft, a mix of 777s, 787 Dreamliners, have between 215 and 263 economy seats. The airline said that only one Skynest unit will be included on each aircraft, meaning 6 beds for more than 200 passengers. Blimey, Nev, could be a bit whiffy. The airline said that the pods could be purchased along with the seat reservation, so presumably only 6 passengers will have the option to use the pods. So in 2011, Air New Zealand introduced something called Sky Couch, a row of 3 economy seats which can fold forward to create a completely flat space. One big enough for 2 people to sleep next to each other side by side. And I think we covered that earlier on, I think last year. I think we covered that story, didn't we? What do you think, Nev? Come on, what do you think of these Sky Nest, as this is called?
Well, I think... yeah, the airlines have got to do something different, haven't they, really? And it's an interesting concept, and I think they've just got to try it to see how it works, and obviously to see what the fares are going to be and this kind of stuff. But I think it's worth a go, definitely, because it's the one thing that, economy class just... has a real problem with in terms of sleeping, I think. Although I know friends of mine that go on an 8-hour economy class flight to the US and they sleep for 6.5 hours of it, which I could never do myself. But I think it's interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how Sam gets on with it. Sam Chewy is the correspondent on this one, and let's see what the score is, and also what the fare structure is going to be.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see just what the fights will be like for this, when obviously the mad scramble to book these particular lay flat beds when they come up with about 6, though, Nev. It's a bit... you think they'd increase that a little bit, though, wouldn't you?
Yes. You've got to know people quite well, haven't you? Or if you didn't at the beginning, you would at the end, that's for sure.
So moving on to the next story, Nev. This one for you, and this is cabin crew waving their finger at you.
Oh, yes. It's on simpleflying.com. And United Airlines has sent a notice to its flight attendants regarding the airline's Boeing 787 Dreamliner aircraft windows. The staff have been reminded to not centrally lock the electronically dimmable windows, which are, it says it's the EDWs. The Chicago-based carrier wants its passengers to be able to allow as much light in as they want. One of the several standout features on the Dreamliner is its transition windows. The level of shade can be adjusted electronically to suit the preference of those sitting next to them. The feature differs from standard plane windows that usually have shades that can be pulled down to block light glaring in. Rather than having all light or no light, window seat passengers can transition the dimness to a sweet spot that they want with these electronic dimmable windows. Additionally, Gizmodo reports that the windows have a height of 19 inches, around 65% larger than their counterparts. This allows for spectacular views to be seen whilst daydreaming on a flight. On several aircraft, crew often ask passengers to keep their window shades down or have them up at different times of the flight. However, on 787s, flight attendants don't have to manually adjust every shade, as they can just lock them to one setting centrally. With this in mind, United has asked its employees not to be so strict with the settings. And some passengers would prefer the settings to be locked to a dim level to ensure that blinding light doesn't make its way in. However, other travellers would prefer to have the option to be able to see outside. Aircraft windows have been purposely designed to be at eye level and help offering a feeling of openness to reduce sensitive situations such as anxiety whilst on a plane. Therefore, these flyers will welcome United's stance. The use of these windows has been largely well received. One of the companies that helped implement this technology is Gentex. This firm has also been consulted to introduce EDWs on Boeing's upcoming 777X. Therefore, it looks like the design could become a standard for more aircraft by the time the decade is over. Simple Flying reached out to United for comment on this notice. A spokesperson replied by informing that the airline often provides helpful tips to its flight attendants and that this notice was simply a reminder. Oh dear, window shaming. Oh dear.
Have you had the chance to? You've flown the Dreamliner, Nev. Have you flown the Dreamliner? Yeah. Have you had a chance to have a play with these windows?
I did, yeah. And I irritated my colleague who was sitting next to me massively because I was playing with the thing for most of the flight. But this is always the problem, isn't it? You know, some people want to look out the window, like me usually, except when I'm trying to sleep. Then obviously it's good to try and have the window shade down, isn't it? But there's no one answer to this, whether it's a manual window or an electronic one like this. You're going to get people that have different requirements, aren't you?
Yeah. I must say, on the Dreamliners that I've flown on with BA and stuff, they are good. Don't get me wrong; they do look good and they're nice to have a play with. But the ones that I've had the chance to press the little touch button on, that they are quite slow, Nev, at their transition.
Yes, they aren't they? Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So next story. This one is on simpleflying.com, and headline: downgraded United passengers. United again? God, Brian Coleman will love this week's episode. So downgraded United passengers hit the jackpot. Blimey, he will be happy with $100,000 compensation. That's not bad. United Airlines passengers hit the jackpot last weekend when the airline gave out $100,000 in compensation for being downgraded. The flight between Newark and Honolulu was short on business class seats, and as such, 10 passengers were asked to take premium economy seats instead. Each passenger received a cool $10,000 for their troubles. So according to a view from the wing, a United Airlines flight, number 363, was due to travel from Newark to Honolulu on Saturday and was slated to be operated by a Boeing 777. However, at the last minute, the airline switched out the 777 for a Boeing 767-300. This meant there were fewer business class seats on board. As such, United looked for 10 volunteers willing to downgrade their seats. However, it wasn't a full downgrade to economy, as this aircraft offered a premium plus cabin option. While United wasn't actively selling any premium economy seats on the route, the mid-level seats were on board and waiting for willing volunteers. Not only was United willing to seat its displaced passengers in premium economy for the flight, seats which come with a footrest and extra legroom, it was also willing to pay the compensation too. Compensation worth $100,000 between the 10 passengers. This meant that each willing passenger had an okayish seat for the 10-hour flight to Honolulu and managed to bank the $10,000 in compensation. And I think we can all agree we'd have been at the front of the queue for this offer. Often when volunteers are sought for downgrades, airlines will start a bidding process to encourage people to swap. They may start at $2,000, but by the time they've been found their full quota of volunteers, a bid may have risen by several thousand, in this case to $10,000. For the passengers willing to swap, it appears United matched the bid for the last passenger. This is unusual in itself, although not for the first time United has given out a huge sum in flight compensation. In March 2018, United allocated one lucky passenger $10,000 to get bumped from their flight, but that was only one person. American Airlines went one better in January 2018 when it allegedly gave out as much as $250,000 in travel credit for a single flight, as reported from A View on the Wing. However, this was divided between in excess of 50 passengers, with most receiving around $5,000 each, which, to be fair, I wouldn't grumble at that. However, some of these holidaymakers travelling to Hawaii, $10,000 in flight credit is going to be tricky to use up. United's policy states that flights must be booked within a year of being issued the credit, although it's unclear whether the flights have also been taken within that period. Although Simple Flying has not seen these specific travel vouchers, previous recipients have said that no name changes were allowed under United's rules. This means that a specific person had to use up to $10,000 of flights within 12 months and can't therefore use it towards a family holiday or something similar. Our guess is a whole lot of this $100,000 will never be claimed, and as such United will not be left out of pocket. What do you think it says here? What do we think, Nev? So if you're offered $10,000 in compensation for going, or let's say £10,000, just let's round up £10,000 for moving from your first class BAC into a premium BAC, which we have tried, Nev, and you were offered this money, I do believe you'd probably take them up.
Oh yes, I think so, don't you? Of course, people have got to remember that, you know, if an aircraft goes tech or whatever it is, or one stuck down route somewhere, it may not be possible to do an exact swap for the same type of aircraft, or maybe the seat configuration may be different, you know, on to what would appear to be identical 330s, but perhaps they've been configured differently, for example. So you're always going to get that. But I think if there's, I mean, I would certainly take it. Yeah, I wouldn't mind being downgraded for that a five-figure sum in any currency, probably. But yeah, I think that would work for me.
What do you reckon, Nev, that Ryanair's compensation would be if you were downgraded from, say, an economy seat to an economy seat with window?
Oh, with a window. Oh, well, that makes the difference, doesn't it? Very little, I would have thought. There is only one class of travel in Ryanair. Although I think that there are obviously seat booking options these days and all the rest of it. But because all their aircraft are the same, apart from they've just got one 737-700. Is that right?
In the business configuration, yeah.
Yeah, but all the rest are 800 NG types.
Oh, don't forget, Nev. Don't forget. You've got those all important overwing exit seats, which you do pay more for.
Of course, yes, I'd forgotten that. But you know, I think on the mainstream, you know, legacy carriers, you're going to get this from time to time, and airlines have got to have a way of compensating people because, you know, let's face it, the difference between a business class fare or a premium economy fare, as we know, is substantial, or can be. So they've got to find a way of dealing with that.
Just looking through the chat room here. Oh, they're having a good chat about coffee. Coffee's just come up in the chat room, so that's always an important subject, especially on the show here, coffee. So, Nev, moving on to the next story, and this one is regarding something that I've got a few of these in my office at home, and there's something that I'm fairly sure a lot of people don't bother looking at.
No. And actually, just a point of order, you shouldn't have any at home unless, you've bought them, because
I purchased them off eBay.
Did you? Right.
And they're TriStar ones.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, that's fair enough. Then there's no more flying in Europe anyway. So it's on the MSN.com website. Everything you ever want to know about airline safety cards. Well, I've never really thought of that, I have to say. But so MSN has partnered with The Points Guy for our coverage of credit card products. It says, please give us your attention as we show you one of the safest worlds there is, the world of the safety card. So says a clever Delta Airlines in-flight safety video. Commercial aviation is extremely safe, but as you read those safety cards, you might even admire the beautiful graphics. Most of them are the product of Interaction Research Company based in Olympia, Washington, and headed by CEO Tricia Ferguson. IRC has been designing the safety cards for the vast majority of the airlines around the world since 1971. We've worked with 80% of the carriers worldwide over the last 50 years, Ferguson said in an interview. The company designs and prints millions of cards per year with airlines like JetBlue and American currently amongst IRC's major clients. The safety card is actually critical for takeoff. If you don't have a safety card on board in every seat, the plane is grounded, Ferguson said, citing FAA rules. Regulations also require that the safety card be the tallest item in the seat back pocket for ease of access. I did not know that, I must say. IRC was founded in 1971 by Daniel Johnson, who had worked at Douglas Aircraft Corporation as an accident psychologist in the 1960s. He's a human factors and ergonomics psychologist, Ferguson explained. Johnson saw the need for passenger education and started IRC in his garage in Long Beach, California. In 1978, Dr. Johnson testified to Congress in favor of making safety briefing cards and videos mandatory throughout the industry. He knew that if passengers would be educated, they could have saved their lives. There was too much emphasis on listening to crew instructions during an emergency, Ferguson said. The cards that IRC designs vary by aircraft and airline. An Embraer E190s card is different from a Boeing 787s. The US Department of Transport regularly releases advisory circulars with required updates, Ferguson said. The cards change because regulations change, and so the onboard equipment the cards describe, such as life vests, rafts, or emergency illumination of the floor. And when one airline purchases used aircraft from another airline, safety cards also needs to change. Most of us think that we are very educated, but every aircraft has so many variables, Ferguson said. To give you an example, the emergency exit doors on the Boeing 737-300 compared to the 900 have different operations. On the 900, you simply pull the handle down and the door opens outwards on a hinge. If you try to pull the door inwards like on the Dash 300, it will literally keep the door from opening. According to Ferguson, IRC's advantage is 50 years of designing cards based on how the human brain works. If you looked at the early safety information provided to passengers, almost all of the cards were very heavy on text and words and light on illustrations, she said. In contrast, IRC from the beginning researched how humans observe and consume information. There are formulas, colors, content considerations, flow, and sequence considerations. How we read in the US, for example, from left to right and from top to bottom, differs from countries in the Middle East, where IRC's clients are also found. Whenever it designs a new illustration, IRC asks a third-party agency to perform one-on-one on-the-street tests with up to 50 individuals. The goal is to have the new artwork understood by at least 90% of these subjects. IRC can design cards using an airline's house style and look. That's the case for 80% of its clients, Ferguson said. Her company has a library of illustrations that can be modified and inserted into a template design. For graphic design nerds, the work is done with Adobe Illustrator and InDesign. IRC now owns a subsidiary printing company and can get proofs done within 24 hours and cards out in 2 weeks or less. But do passengers actually read the cards? There aren't any statistics, but clearly airlines want more people to read them. Take the case of one airline, which Ferguson said attempted humour in the late 1990s. The idea was to invite passengers to find a character like a ballerina or a magician hidden inside the pages of a safety card. It lasted about 5 years before the airline went back to the standard characters. They tried to make the card novel and attractive to increase the number of people reading, she said, noting that it's a difficult task. Humour doesn't always translate well to such a serious subject. And I would add that perhaps the BA safety video might be put into that area as well. Personal opinion, of course. It says, read your safety card before every flight. On a personal level, Ferguson says, I knew that IRC was making a difference when an Ethiopian Boeing 767 crashed in 1996. It ran out of fuel after being hijacked, and the crash was caught on video. Of the 175 people aboard, 50 survived. And I woke up on the morning of the crash and saw a news report saying a survivor, saying the only reason that they survived was because they read our safety card. We know that the more educated you are, the higher the likelihood of survival and avoiding injury to you and others, she added. But does she read the cards on every flight she takes? Yes, she says emphatically, and apparently so do her seatmates. Last night I was on a flight and somebody asked me what I did for a living. 9 times out of 10 when I explain, they pull out the safety card and give it a read. And you should too, it says. Now, this is all very interesting and it's all very laudable, but Carlos, what is the one thing that passengers do often when they leave the aircraft in an emergency?
Take the safety card with them?
Yeah, they can do, and some do, but they take their luggage with them.
They certainly
carry
do.
on luggage, don't they?
Yeah, that's one of the things that obviously we do talk about on the show enough, is that they do take their bags and luggage. Now, this is not included on the safety cards, not the ones I've seen, to go in the overhead bin and take your luggage out and do your makeup or grab a pint before you go. But unfortunately, some people do, which is also a bit annoying. But I must say, Nev, the chat room's been having a damn good chat about this in there. Neil Lamborn says that he's got one from an RAF TriStar. Mine's from a British Caledonian TriStar, actually, I will just say. Stephen H says, what happens if there isn't one in each seat for landing? Does the flight get cancelled? Lisbo Nelson has put something very good, actually, at Nev. You'll appreciate this. Add gin recipes to the safety card and everyone will open it.
Yeah,
very
like
true.
That.
Tony S says in the chat room that there was controversy with the Wizz Air safety cards because it has a sexy-looking female flight attendant on it. Nev?
Oh dear. Well, that's a bit 1970s, isn't it? I thought we'd moved on from there. Gosh.
I'm just going. Oh, there you go. Obviously. I'm just looking at. Just reading the chat room here. They're having a damn good chat about this. I have to say, the two cards that I've got, like I said, one's from the British Caledonian TriStar, and the other one, actually, controversially, is from a DC-10 British Caledonian TriStar. But as Neil is, saying in the chat room, if you go on eBay, you can. There's lots of. If you do collect these kind of things, admittedly, mine are purely based on the aircraft it came from, but you can get these safety cards, but don't take them off the aircraft if you're flying on these aircraft, people, because that's a bit naughty, isn't it, Nev?
Oh yes, terrible, disgusting.
Have you not got a BA one?
I haven't. No, I've not got a single BA safety card anywhere. I've never taken one off an aircraft. Oh. However, I'm flying in a couple of weeks' time, so.
Oh dear! And you didn't hear that here first, guys. Nev will be looking at the safety card and not bringing it home with him. But in all seriousness, Nev, How many people do you honestly see when you board your flight? Because I do look, and I honestly, hand on heart, do look at the safety card when I board the aircraft, regardless of how many times I've flown on these aircraft before. How many people do you see not bothering at all?
95% of them, probably. But obviously I can't see the whole aircraft. But I do have. I don't actually. I don't read the safety card on every flight, but I do count the number of seats to the nearest emergency exit, whether that is in front of me or behind me, and I also look at the build of my fellow passengers to decide whether I'm going to trample over them in order to get out in an emergency, which I know is not, part of the procedure. But frankly speaking, if it all goes wrong, it's every man or woman for themselves, possibly. But so I don't read the safety card every time, I have to say.
Actually, Richard Adams in the chat room makes a good point. Imagine having a safety card from the original Comet, Nev. That would be worth a few quid.
Yeah.
Neil Lamworn, obviously Neil, a very good friend of the show, who works on the Guppy. He says we should do a safety card for the Guppy. Now that would be one I'd like to see, because there's quite a few ways into the Guppy. Some of them larger than others, Nev. As we had a good tour around there, didn't we? Last week.
What a great aircraft that was! Yeah, no, great stuff. Yes. So, but I didn't know. So I don't know if it's an FAA thing or a CAA thing or an EASA thing, but I didn't know that the largest item in the seat back pocket had to be the safety card in terms of its visibility above everything else. Although, just thinking about BA flights I've been on, I don't think it is on every one. But I'll have a look in a couple of weeks when I'm flying next.
Do you think, Nev, that the reason people don't bother looking at the safety cards is because most airlines nowadays run a safety video on the IFE?
Yeah, I think there is that, and also perhaps what's the word I'm looking for? Just the way people are about flying these days, a bit like getting on a train, isn't it? Do you read the safety information on the door of your train last time you went on one? Probably not. But of course, when it does all go wrong, the cabin crew do need the cooperation of the passengers, which is why they're quite aggressive in getting them out of the aircraft. But yeah, I would encourage people to read the safety card always.
There you go, guys and girls. You heard it from Neville Bounds. Make sure you read your safety card. So that's where we're going to bring the commercial news segment to a close this week. And I'm going to hand things back to Nev, who is going to introduce, it's the part of the show that I think everyone waits for each week for sure. So, Nev, I'm going to cry because it's the last one.
I know. This is part 9 of our interview with Captain John Hutchinson. Of course, John's flown, over 70 different types of aircraft. So you would expect us to round up with another aircraft story. But in fact, Nick managed to get out of him some interesting information with regard to being all at sea.
Your adoption of the Royal National Lifeboat Institute as one of your favourite charities reflects your love of the sea. Should any of our listeners want to contribute in thanks for you giving your time to us today, how may they do so?
Well, I'm sure the RNLI has a website, and if they wanted to contribute via that website, I've never done it myself, but I'm sure it's possible. And if they wanted to record the fact that this was in response to listening to me rabbiting on about Concorde and other aeroplanes, I'd be very delighted if that sort of recognition was given. It might just amuse you all to know why I do this for the RNLI. I used to have a yacht, which I shared with various other friends, and I'm sailing one October day from Lowestoft down to the River Deben, down the east coast. And it was a cracking day for sailing. Beautiful weather, northeast wind, force 4 to 5. We were going like the clappers. And with me, there was soon myself on board and a very good friend of mine who used to be my neighbour, ex-naval officer called George Wells, and his wife. Now, his wife's parents lived in Thorpeness, just to the north of Aldeburgh. And we had arranged that we'd sail past Thorpeness at midday and wave to them. And by some miracle of maritime navigation, we got there more or less precisely at midday. And we're all waving furiously at this house. And no sign of the elderly couple. So we're now going round and round in circles, sort of waving and waving and waving and waving. And eventually I go down below and I pulled out I don't know, 50 million candle power lamp or something. And I fire this lamp up, and I had to start the engine up before I did that because it would have drained the battery flat in no time. So now picture the scene. There are 4 of us in the cockpit. 3 of us are waving furiously, and the fourth one's trying to direct this lamp at the house. And eventually the couple come out, and they wave to us. Brilliant. I put the lamp away, we carry on sailing. The next thing, on Channel 16, yacht off Aldeburgh, this is Aldeburgh lifeboat, do you read? And as this radio call came through, we saw this maroon rocket going up. It was the bloody lifeboat being launched. So with a heavy, sinking heart, I picked up the handset and I said, Aldeburgh lifeboat, I'm a yacht off Aldeburgh, I'm reading you loud and clear, go ahead with your message. And they said, we've had reports of a yacht in distress off Thorpeness. I said, what was the nature of the yacht's distress? And they said, well, the crew were all trying to attract attention, and there's somebody flashing SOS with an Aldis lamp. Oh my God. So I said, well, we've just sailed past Thorpeness, and we were indeed waving to some friends of ours who live there. I said, I can't account for the flashing light. I said, that must have been the sunlight off my gin and tonic. And they said, huh. They said, well, we've launched the lifeboat now, and we're going to have a search around, and please maintain listening watch. And about 15 or 20 minutes later, they called up again. They said, are you sure you're not in distress? And I said, I'm absolutely certain. We're having a lovely sail. I'm so sorry you've been troubled. And they said, oh, okay, we're going back to the lifeboat station. We can't find anybody. I said, no, I don't think you'll find anybody. I think we're the only people sailing. And that was that. And I felt this enormous sense of guilt. And I thought, what can I do about it? And I thought, well, I tell you what, I'll do talks about Concord and raise money for the lifeboats.
Because you've been trying to make up for it ever since.
And I've been making up for it ever since.
Good for you.
And I think I've just about repaid my debt.
I hope so. Well, it's been an absolute delight talking to you. You have had a marvellous flying career, and I'm truly jealous of it. I'm sure on behalf of all our listeners to the Plane Talking UK podcast, and a personal thank you for giving us your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much indeed, John Hutchinson.
Well, thank you, and it's been a great pleasure talking to you as well, Nick, and to meet you. So I hope we shall see more of each other in the future.
I hope
one
so
way
too.
Or another.
Thank you very much
anyway,
indeed.
Many thanks.
So this is more than just a book about aviation. John Hutchinson grew up in India, where his family lived, through the country's troubles during the transition to independence. Anyone interested in Anglo-Indian history will find the first part a remarkable first-hand account of what it was like. John's personal life of joyous success and family tragedy punctuates the book, and it gives a very intimate picture of his life, and he provides us with a very honest and touching look into his world. His extensive flying career stretched from the Harvard to Concord and back again to his venerable Oster Aglet. It's a remarkable record of the path, not always smooth and straight, that he's taken through some of the most exciting times to exist in the short span of time that encompasses the world of aviation. His description of flying the wonderful aircraft that he has in his logbook are fascinating and enough to satisfy an enthusiastic aviator without overwhelming a casual reader. By his own admission, he's lived a charmed life, but he's done so with grace and good humor. The Wind Beneath My Wings makes a great read.
I have to say, Nev, and I'm sure everyone who watches the show would agree. I think we're going to have to do. Where are we? We have to do a bit of hand clapping to you, actually, Nev.
Oh,
and to Captain Nick as well.
Well, yeah, totally. Yeah, Nick's work was phenomenal on this project, and as Richard Asam says in the chat room, how are you ever going to top an interview like that? And at this point, I don't have an answer, but I shall continue looking out for aviators that want to talk to us and see if we can employ Nick's services one more time to do something. But John's life has been absolutely fascinating, and he was so generous with his time. So we, as I said before, we were there nearly 3 hours filming, which is why we've ended up with a 9-part series. But one of the most important things he asked us to mention on the podcast was to, if you have a few spare pennies, don't necessarily send it to Plane Talking UK, but send it to the Royal National Lifeboat Institute at www.rnli.org/donate, and that will go a long way to helping John pay back for his slight error. But these guys and girls do an absolutely fantastic job, and it's great that to see John is not only was a skipper in his aviation career, but in his marine and maritime career as well. So that was great, wasn't it?
I have to say, there's an awful lot of love in the chat room for the whole series, Nev. And I'm just going to say thank you for all your work along with Nick on producing that. It's been very enjoyable, and just for the benefit of the guys and girls who have loved the series, Nev, are you going to be having this as a whole kind of group together on a separate?
We're going to we'll put it on the YouTube channel. We'll make it a playlist, so we'll put it on there so you can see all 9 parts, or just choose the one you want to see, and we'll put some links to that in the Twitter and Facebook and Instagram feeds as well. And actually, I'm sure John would like to see them. Well, John's only seen the first couple so far, so I'm going to make sure that we allow him to see all of it.
So moving on to the next part of the show, we're going to hand things over to Nev to introduce. Those of you may have noticed that Armando has been missing on the show this week. That's due to the fact Armando is enjoying very much his new job, flying all those flights across in his Pilatus PC-12. And he couldn't fly, or couldn't be with us tonight because he's flying, unfortunately. But he will be back sometime soon. I don't know whether he'll be back next week, but he will be back soon. But he will be sending in various video segments for us to go and play on the show. But he has sent in something for us to play on the show this week. So, Nev, what is coming up next?
Well, this is really interesting. So instead of the military business that we normally get from Armando, we get an update on bad Dingo air racing preparations for the 2020 racing season from Race 56 pilot George Catalano.
Hey, welcome to Bad Dingo. Almost have an engine back. It's supposed to arrive tomorrow, actually. I'm pretty excited about that. It's been October, November, December, January, most of February. But it'll be worth it.
So, George, what actually happened to the engine? Why did we have to send it off?
Well, that's a good question. I'm an old guy, so I don't like flying around with things I don't know, especially when you're pushing it a bit. And so what happened was we had an oil leak that had been there since I bought the plane 2 years ago, and we slowly identified where it was. valve covers and push rod seals and oil pan gasket. And then finally, there's still a leak. And so we find it, and it's a crack case. So it's near the through bolt between 5 and 6. And it's not very far from the cylinder base where all the bolts connect up. So we'd watched it. I'd stripped the paint away. We put dye penetrant on it. We watched it for, better part of 9 months. And after Reno last year, it just seemed like it was leaking a lot more. I don't know, you know how that goes. 2 drops of oil make one heck of a mess. So when I took the cowling off post Reno, I set the cowling aside, not looking at it, and I did all my normal, oil analysis and filter inspection and bore scope and checked went through the whole 9 yards. Everything was super fine, except there was oil everywhere. And I came to the conclusion that I didn't want to have this conversation with my wife while we were gliding down at, best glide speed, somewhere inhospitable. Say, hey, sorry, honey.
Yeah,
So,
which, to be fair, is most of the West.
Yeah, so I thought, you know what? Just the heck with it. So take it out. So on Friday night, I decided, and Saturday night, it was gone. And that was, basically in October, beginning of October. I sent it off to Lycon, and they went through it, put a stage 3 cam. We did all the coatings and all the cool stuff, high compression pistons, rebalanced everything, sent everything out. Everything was good, thank goodness. Flowed the cylinders, and what else did we do? We cryoed everything and dynoed it. I'm not going to tell you how much we saw on the dyno. Surprise!
Yeah. Industry secret.
Yeah, I'm happy. It's not a race engine. I didn't want a race engine because this isn't really a race airplane, but it's a competitive airplane. So I wanted the goal to be bulletproof. You want to throw 100 horse of nitrous? Don't worry about it. You want to run it at 2,900? Don't worry about it. That was the goal, and not worry about the engine because it's made to run and gone through. So this engine was an 03, and it had 800 hours on it. And you know how they get. They just get tired.
Yeah.
And they start leaking, and I start, kind of looking around going, where's this go? Why does this look like that? And that kind of stuff drives me crazy. So I took the engine out and we sent it off. But the really cool part is basically we have restored the firewall forward. So I'm going to show you the firewall and tell you what I did. We removed the engine mount and had it stripped and inspected and modified for a service bulletin. We had the nose gear removed and the drag link replaced with a new, more robust drag link. I took all of the solenoids off the firewall and replaced all the wiring. Everything is labeled, everything is powder coated, and everything is ready to go. And we also built a nose gear closeout. The nose gear closeout, which is here, is designed to close the space. It sits basically in here. This will take a second, but basically it goes down in here and covers the space where the nose gear comes up into the tunnel, and it keeps air from going down in there, and it also is a better protection for fire. If you ever have a fire, it'll stop the fire from going into the nose gear tunnel, which is basically in the cockpit. So it's supposed to give you better speed, but it's also better cooling, and it's just smarter. The reason nobody builds them is, without cursing a lot, I can tell you that it took 15 times more time than we thought, and it's just like, it's an SOB to do. Very, very difficult. Very, very hard. I did a whole bunch of, modifications on here, of course, but all just to make it better and prettier and more sellable and smarter for me. And then I also took all of the baffling and fixed it, replaced it, put on new baffle seal, got it all labeled, ready to go. It is spectacular. Painted the nose gear doors and Cerakoted the exhaust. It is ready to go on. Happy with that. The prop is sitting here ready to go. It only has 300 hours on it since overhaul, so it's fine. We have new fire blanket going in the cowling, which I'm doing over there. And all new hoses. Everything labeled, ready to go. So engine's supposed to be here Thursday, and we'll start on Saturday. Because it's going to, you know how it goes.
Yeah.
It'll take a day, but it'll take a week. Anything aviation, right? Multiply by 5.
So we had kind of said earlier or sometime last year that March, give or take a couple of weeks, was kind of our deadline for getting ready for PRS. So do you think we're going to be ready?
Yes, we'll be ready for PRS. We have a new intake tube. I'm still waiting for a new one that is a straight ram air with no filtered air. But yeah, we used all of our time. We were really hoping to have an engine by December. But when I got to Lycon, I was like 45th in row, and they are very, very busy. So with a lot of begging and cajoling, and you can't rush it just because you're not the only guy there, and everybody wants their engine now. So that's just the way it goes. But like I always say, I would rather have it done right. Fortunately, Desert Rat let me use their airplane, and Joe Coraggio, and I flew his, on and off for 15 hours in the last few months. So at least I'm staying current and doing formation work and all that kind of stuff, because it's terrible not flying, especially doing what we're doing. So I'm feeling actually pretty good about all of it at this point. But I'm really feeling good about this, because this I'm so happy with. Everything is labeled, everything is new, and everything works, and there's no more magic. I know where it all goes, and I know how it's supposed to work.
So now that we got a new engine coming in, we've got all these little mods that are each going to make a tiny little bit of a difference. I think we were pretty happy with your performance and the airplane's performance last year. So what are we shooting for this year?
Well, all things being constant, which they're not, who knows who's showing up next year. I'm really trying to move up the ladder at the silver. I know there's no prayer of being in the gold. I don't really want to be in the gold. Another 100,000 would put you in the gold and at the back of the gold. So what's the point? This is our everyday flying airplane. So as we've always said, this is not a race plane. It's a plane we race. So we need a good, reliable airplane that we can use all the other weeks of the year. The goal is to give Ernie and Vicky a hard time. I don't really see any chance of catching Breathless. He's just got a little too much going for him. But if I run nitrous, could be different. I'm pretty sure Conrad's going to be using some extra tricks this year, so he's going to be even going faster. And I've promised not to say anything about that, but if I could pass Vicky and stay in front of Ernie, it's all in where you qualify, of course. And those two are, they're A++ pilots. So it doesn't matter how much horseshoe power you have. Excuse me, if you can't stay on the course, fly it right, doesn't really matter. I've proven that to myself running nitrous in Little Dingo. All you got to do is look away for a second, and all that, everything you gained, you blow on a turn. So it's tricky business running nitrous. As long as you don't have to be twizzling with it and messing with it and everything's running fine, then it works. Otherwise it's not worth doing if you're only picking up 5 miles an hour and you're not really flying well, And again, I've already figured that out the hard way.
Yeah. Well, that just goes to show you, we talked about it last year where it truly is a brotherhood and a sisterhood out there on the course, and everybody's just eking an extra couple knots, but it's the same folks that you trust year after year, and you learn how they fly, they learn how you fly, and it's about getting ahead of one or two of them, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I know that it'll be a fun, good, hard year, and so the engine will do better, and I can run it a little harder, and it's putting out more horsepower for sure. Stay on the course, do the best you can, and don't make mistakes. So that's way easier said than done. Only takes a half a second to look away at the wrong time for something, and you look up and the pylon's on the wrong side of the cowling, and you're like, huh? So that's just so not cool. Like, what's that doing over there? So we've seen that happen. But yeah, I'm excited because I feel really good about the plane, and this is what'll be my 5th year in sports class. So, it's starting to fall into a little bit of a rhythm. The T6 racing from when I was a kid is completely irrelevant at this point, and everything now is just about doing what we are in this airplane. So I think I think we'll do well, but that's not to say that 3 other people don't show up with turbocharged whatevers and they're pushing everybody out of the gold into the top of the silver, and next thing you know, you're in the bronze, and that's racing, right? So that's okay.
Well, that sounds good. Well, so we'll do another one of these updates as soon as that engine comes in. We get it installed, and we get that airplane back in the air. And then next on the calendar is getting ready for PRS, pretty much. So that'll be mid-June timeframe, early mid-June, and then from then on, it's just tweaking to September, isn't it?
Yeah, we have possibly run an ADI or at least spray bars on the oil cooler. I've made firewall cutouts for those. They're up here, right here, ready to go. Right now they're blocked off, but they're ready to go. We don't have any work to do firewall forward, just hook it up, go to town. And it's going to look really pretty.
Well, that's the important part, is you got to look good when you're racing.
Well, if you're going to, especially if you come in dead last, and you take a cowling off and you go, but it's really pretty.
That's awesome. All right, well, we'll leave it here for now, and as always, go check out Bad Dingo Air Racing on Facebook and all the regular social media websites. So we'll catch up with you here in a couple weeks, George.
Thank you.
See ya.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Big thanks to Armando for sending that in for this week's show. And it's safe to say, Nev, I was sitting there waiting for that cigar to come out at some point during that interview.
Yes, it certainly sounded as though that was going to be happening, doesn't it? But what a fascinating story, wasn't it? It was really interesting. I'm not really into air racing. I certainly like watching it, but I don't know anything about it at all. So it was interesting to hear from his point of view the sort of stuff they get up to.
I must admit, it's one of those things that I've always wanted to go and watch and never had the chance to do it, either through there not being anything like that in the UK or through work. But I really would love to go and watch something like, I think they've stopped the Red Bull Air Races now, but a kind of, a aircraft racing thing, that would be awesome. Obviously, I think they only do it in the US, Nev.
Yeah.
But definitely one of them.
Yeah, have they stopped the Red Bull racing here in the UK? Yeah, because they used to have it around London City Airport, didn't they, back in the day? And that was quite interesting. So there's, I think I'm right in saying that Paul Bonhomme, who's a 747 captain for British Airways, practices not very far from where I live, because I can hear him sometimes during the week, or at least one of his colleagues make an awful lot of noise a few nautical miles away. But yeah, I mean, the skills these guys and girls have got is absolutely fantastic, isn't it?
Is that something you'd like to try as well, Nev? Have a back seat in one of these aerobatic racing aircraft, or do you not think you'd have the stomach for it?
No, absolutely not. I've got a very good stomach for lots of turbulence and wind shear in regular commercial aircraft, and I can certainly recommend flying with Al in his PA-28 or with John over in Canada in his aircraft, or Chris Pratt or any one of those. But I'm a straight and level guy, I've got to say. All this aerobatic lark just, would not suit my constitution at all.
I have to say, I think the one time that I've had the chance to fly in, not so much an aerobatic aircraft, but you remember meeting Dan over at Seething at the airfield with his long easy.
Oh yeah, his long easy.
The long easy, I had the chance to go, sit back seat in the long easy with Dan. For those who don't know, it's look it up. The long easy is one heck of a, what should we say, interesting aircraft, I think.
Well, we did a video interview. Yeah, we did a video interview with him at Seething. Was it last year? I think I'm right in saying. And he talked very passionately about the aircraft, didn't he? So fascinating piece of hardware. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I think when I had that chance to fly in that aircraft, and Dan took me up in that, and we didn't kind of do any loop-the-loops or anything like that, but we had that kind of higher than normal G load for me, and as someone who's normally used to a kind of Cessna 150 kind of barely G, pulling those manoeuvres in that aircraft, and I can't give enough praise to these guys who do this kind of sports flying and pulling these Gs, and that you just don't bring up half of what you've eaten a few hours before.
Yes, but as I say, even when I was younger, when I was in my 20s or whatever, I've just been really averse to that kind of thing. So fairground rides and that sort of stuff just did not appeal to me at all. I mean, I've been on one once, and that was enough for me. So certainly acrobatics and aerobatics are not something which I would like to do.
No. So before we wrap up the show then for this week, we have got a special announcement to make, actually, for one of our listeners, one of the very good friends of the show. And I got a little message this week from a certain Sophie, who, along with this listener, David, hello Dave Coulston, moved across to Spain. I think it was last year they moved over to Spain for David to continue his flight training, because as we all know, learning to fly here in the UK costs about £6 billion a day. But the announcement we've got to make is that apparently David has completed his instrument rating in Spain on his quest for his commercial pilot's status. So he also said that he was very much pleased to get the whole thing out of the way. So I think the instrument rating, I think, is one of those things that is not it's not something that I dabbled in, but through looking at the textbooks, it's quite involved. So on behalf of everyone here at PTUK, a big congratulations to David on completing his instrument rating over in Spain. It'd be interesting just to actually get David back on, Nev, and just to sort of go over how things are learning to fly. Obviously the weather's better in Spain, but it'd be nice to see just the differences in learning to fly somewhere where it's probably a lot cheaper. What do you think, Nev?
Oh yeah, definitely. No, I think it'd be really good. I think it'd be very interesting to hear his journey so far and how he's got on. Instrument rating is serious stuff, isn't it? So no, I'm really, really delighted for him. That's brilliant news. Yeah,
so all the best to you, David, and it'd be good to have you on the show. So if you are listening, get in contact with us, and we'll beam you in the studio live from your Spanish resort. So Nev, wrap things up. What's going on in the world of Mr. Bounds for this coming week?
Well, I think, what should we do next week? I think, yes, London is the destination of choice for me for most of next week, what I'll be doing for work. One thing I forgot to mention, whilst I was at the A320 simulator last week filming, I did ask the lads if I could try an ILS for myself with a side-stick controlled aircraft, because I've never done that before. I've flown the 737-800 simulator, before, but never an A320. And I have to say, it was an absolute delight. And even the captain that I was flying with said to me that, although it was my first go at it, he has flown with some first officers that have got 2,000 hours on the clock that weren't as good as I was. But of course, the difference being was there was no wind. It was a completely cavoque day, and it was, it was pretty straightforward. Tell you what, though, when you get down to about sort of less than 1,000 feet, about 800 feet off the deck, that side stick controller becomes a little bit critical. So up until that point, it's pretty straightforward. But you've got to, you cannot over control the aircraft, because once you start doing that, then you're all over the place. But no, I really enjoyed it as my first experience of flying an Airbus. So in the simulator, so that was really, really great. So I'm very, very happy and pleased with that.
So are you allowed to divulge in what the filming was about, Nev, or was it a specific type of thing for the
Well,
guys?
it's the fellas at the A320 podcast, Matt and Andy. I'm helping them with a new series that they're launching for more training. You may know that they do online training, which is available on a specific app, and you can sign up to that. So we've recorded a lot of content for the next lot of training. So Matt and Andy will be putting that together. It's turned out to be a very, very successful venture for them, and I'm absolutely delighted to be involved with them. So no, it's really, really good. So we get to do all sorts of interesting things, but we did cram an awful lot in one day. I think we probably did about a day and a half's worth of filming in a very long day in the end. It was really, really worth it.
Do you not find, Nev, when you're sitting in that sim, you've got the main control centre where they can program all the bits and pieces into the sim? Did you not have the urge just to kind of tap in a few engine failures, flap failures, hydraulic failures while you're sitting there? Or
yes, I mean the number of options that you've got on the control panel is absolutely huge. But it's very interesting as well. Whilst I was filming, because I was, directly behind the centre pedestal on the A320. So this is a fixed base simulator, so things not moving around at all. But of course, the peripheral vision that you get from these simulators and the projectors that are right on the edge, they play massive havoc with your balance. So when they're in a turn on to finals or joining the localizer and the aircraft's banking, you are banking with it. You find yourself over an angle because it plays tricks with your balance. So the realism, even on those fixed base sims, is fantastic. And also the graphic quality. And you may have heard John Hutchinson say during the Concorde series how vestigial and very basic his training was compared to the graphic display systems of modern simulators. So you really are, there. And we put the guys through some awful failures, but for the best part of 8 or 9 hours. So they came out of it very tired indeed, because it is hard work. There's no question about it for them. So but it was great to see, what they do when they're doing emergency checklists and the things that they have to memorize, and the QRH, the quick reference handbook information, that kind of stuff. So it was really, really interesting to see it all.
Neil Lamward just says in the chat room, is there not just the one button, Nev, for takeoff and landing?
Well, there should be, shouldn't there? But no, in fact, actually, do you know how many buttons there are in an A320? I can tell you, because at the simulation place, they had put it up on a flip chart. There are 490 buttons on the flight deck of an A320.
Really?
Not just one. Yep. How about that?
There you go. For those of you listening to the show, I mean that is one heck of a bit of information there, Nev. I will say.
Yeah.
I will say.
Now, had you not tuned into that, you would not have known that, would you?
No. The listeners will be safe in the fact that they know that information now. But no, yeah. Are you got any more plans for any more videoing with the guys from the A320 podcast?
Well, there's poor old Matt at the A320 podcast. He's got an awful lot of editing to do, so I don't do any of the editing for them. They do it themselves. So they'll be very busy for many, many weeks yet. So that's why we tried to crack out all of the content in one go this week, because we didn't want to have to go back. And of course, the guys, do rent the simulator for real, so it's a lot of money to do that for a day. But yeah, it was really, really good. And also the people that we rent the simulator from are very, very hospitable as well, and very nice bunch of folks. So it was a delight to work with them.
Was that far for you to go, Nev?
Just in Cambridge, just by the airport, just at Cambridge Airport. So yeah, that was good. So easy to get to, and I'd been there before with the guys previously. So it was really, really good.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm very jealous, Nev. I'm still to have a go in an Airbus sim, or any Airbus sim.
We'll have to get you along one day, won't we?
Yes, yeah, it'd be nice to have a little go in that. See what they are. See what it's like to have a big space in front of you. You know, with no sticks.
Yes, and plenty of space for your lunch. That's for sure. Yes.
So what am I doing? What am I doing this week? What am I doing this week? I don't know actually what we've got on the books for this week. We're quite busy. It's starting to get in towards the exhibition season for us. So we've got lots of exhibitions coming up for the companies we do exhibition work for, and lots of other trips. A lot of our drivers have been going into London this week, which has been rather exciting for them. I happen to just be the person to give them the job and send them out, because I just have no interest at all in driving in London, especially in a truck. So but apart from that, I shall be relaxing this week and doing a few jobs and stuff at work, and enjoying my job, as I have done, as you do as well now, Nev.
Yeah. It's nice. We're very fortunate, aren't we, to have jobs that we really like doing.
I know.
Makes
it took me long enough, but I got there in the end.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So don't forget to join us again next week for the show. We are going to wrap up things now. But social media, Nev, where can people find us on social media?
Well, we like a bit of social media, so all you've got to do is search any social media for Plain Talking UK. We've got our WhatsApp number, of course, which you can send texts or pictures to. It's +44 757 2249 That's +44 for the UK, 757 2249 You can email us at podcast@plaintalkinguk.com, or the website is www.plaintalkinguk.com. And if you want to send an email to any of us individually, it's Carlos, Nev, or Matt, or Armando at plaintalkinguk.com, and then we will pick it up and reply to you. So you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll get notifications when we go live, and you can help shape the conversation of the show by joining us in the chat room. So go to www.youtube.com and search for Plain Talking UK.
And don't forget as well, if you do your shopping on Amazon, which I think we all do, I know I spend far too much time on Amazon and money as well each week buying random things, mostly cables, as I did this week. I went onto Amazon and purchased a cable, a satellite cable that I need, an extension cable at home, Nev. So I thought, well, I'll use the PTUK link on the website to purchase through there. So I done my bit for the thing.
Yeah,
but, click on the on our homepage. You'll see the link there for Amazon, which you can click on, and it doesn't cost you anything, but does help us every now and again with a little bonus from Amazon. So there we go. So that's it for this week's show then. I'm going to say a big thanks to everyone who has joined us in the YouTube chat room this evening. It's been a busy night for many people in the chat room tonight, but a big thanks to everyone who has joined us in there, and also not forgetting as well everyone who downloads the show each week as an audio version through iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, and all those other millions of apps you can get for your Android and iOS device. So big thanks to you all. And don't forget as well, if you want to get your picture on the wall behind me here, which there's actually Nev. Oh, there we go. Sorry, Nev, I didn't mean to poke it. And Armando is here.
There's some intruder.
There's an intruder. And welcome onto the show. Before we wrap up, hello to you, Armando.
Hi guys, have we started yet?
Yeah, we're live. I must admit, that is an awesome view, Armando. A very big treat for everyone watching on YouTube right now. For those of you watching on YouTube, take yourselves over there if you're listening to the audio show, because we've got a very special view right now, haven't we, Armando? Where are we?
We are in Baltimore, Washington International Airport. As you can see, I'm at the terminal.
And it's a great view. There we go. We've got the full screen view for everyone to see. How's things going, Armando? Are you? I'm guessing you're busy.
Yeah, just got a little 10-minute break, so I just thought I'd dial in, say hi to everybody, and jump right off.
Oh, that's really. I don't suppose we could have a quick tour of the aircraft, or is that not allowed?
Yeah, I could probably all do it from the same seat. So here is the flight deck. Now, most of these Pilatuses are actually set up pretty much the same. Sorry, I'm getting the camera backwards here. So we've got pretty good setup with 2 Garmin 750s, touchscreen GPSs, full nav, IFR capable with coupled approaches. And then on the back, we've got an entire first-class configuration. So,
loving the wood trim. The wood,
very nice.
Trim.
Yeah. Are they is that Pilatus certified for single pilot operation, Armando?
They are. Yeah, the Pilatus is a single pilot airplane. The airline is also certified to do single pilot, but we don't like to do it, so we operate with a 2-pilot environment.
Sure. Yeah. Very cool. Excellent.
I must say, Armando, I'm loving the seat there. That looks incredibly comfortable.
It does.
They're comfortable for about the first 4 hours. By the 8th one, yeah.
So there we go, everyone. A quick look into Armando's amazing life there on board the aircraft. Thanks for dialing in, Armando. Very much appreciated indeed.
Sure thing, guys. I hope it was a great show. Can't wait to listen to it here in a couple hours.
Oh, by the way, loving the tie as well. Very, very nice. Very, very posh.
You know, I'm always just trying to look as good as Matt.
So we are going to finish up the show now then, so you can stay there, Armando. You can give us all a wave as well. So from me here in the PTUK studios, from Nev over in the NevTech studios, and from Armando in the Pilatus PC12 studios, have a great weekend. Enjoy your Sunday roast. Let's all say goodbye.
See you guys. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.